Now, a couple of things. We are at the 50% retracement of the entire run-up from the 2022 low. We have now come back to the peak from the 2022 top at horizontal support 48.18. So we're at horizontal support and our 50% retracement from the entire bull phase from the 2022 low. This is our linear scaling here in the weekly time frame on the S&P 500. So the 50% retracement, we've given back half of it now, and we've come back to the 2022 high. With our linear scaling, we're just below the 61.8 Fibonacci from the 2023 low. And let me adjust this. It moved on me here a little bit. We're just below that level using our linear scaling. If we look at the log scaling, the 61.8 Fibonacci is directly below. So we're near that 61.8 Fib. We're just below it, already in the golden pocket here from the 2023 low. 50% retracement from the 2022 low. We took out the support zone from the March low and the August low, but we didn't close there, at least not so far. This is a weekly chart. You've got a bottoming tail. As we're hitting the support levels of 50% retracement from the 2022 low, the 61.8 Fib, and horizontal support, which was the January 2022 peak for the 2022 sell-off, you're getting an 8 of a 9 count in the weekly time frame. Now, sometimes these counts play out, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you get the count, you end up going a little higher. Other times it causes a turn immediately. The 8 or 9 bar could be below the count. This week is bar 8. Next week, as long as we close below the bar from 4 weeks ago, 1, 2, 3, 4, as long as we're below this level right here, you'll get the 9 count. The 8 bar might be the bottom of the low of the count. Coin is getting a 9 count. This week, counts are showing price exhaustion to the downside, so just something worth paying attention to. This is the S&P weekly chart. Here's a NASDAQ weekly chart. Same count going on here. You had the 8 count form here, 8 of a 9. So this week we're getting bar 8. We could get bar 9. As long as, even if bar 9 is not below the count, it'll still be a perfected bullish signal, a reversal signal, if we can get a rally and we still close below the bar from 4 weeks ago. So again, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. That'd be up in here. So if we don't rally all the way back up, this count could complete. If we get a bigger rally than that, it still might mark a reversal if we get a powerful rally coming back and filling the gaps. Bitcoin and the S&P, which have a positive correlation, Bitcoin's getting the 9 count. Bitcoin ended up following the S&P lower, but right now it's rebounding back up off of those lows here in the weekly time frame and in the daily time frame. Got a doji today for Bitcoin. It's still trading and hasn't closed its Monday session yet. I'm getting a bunch of bottoming signals for Bitcoin. They won't be final in the daily time frame till the session closes. Again, could we get a rebound? Can China cancel their retaliatory tariffs? The market would likely rally if that happened. Now, the VIX is predicting a rally tomorrow, but like I said, when you start getting these parabolic moves on the VIX, then sometimes you got to throw it out the window. But usually, most of the time, when the VIX gets these surges or the VIX crashes, it predicts moves on the S&P 500. Right now, there's a 95% chance we're going to have an up day on the S&P. We recovered from the lows today on the S&P, but we had a decline of 0.23% on the S&P 500. If this black candlestick marks a reversal, we could see the VIX begin to collapse and the stock market make a breathtaking rebound. It was up 33%, nearly 33, just under 33% at the highs. The S&P dropped by 5%, and then the S&P ended up covering to just underneath Friday's close, down 0.23%. So again, recovered surrounding European Union news and some of the fake news about the Fed and about the Trump administration postponing tariffs for 90 days. You're going to see countries start making deals with the Trump administration, and I think you're going to see a rally of hope. Already seeing that today, the beginning of that, with the announcement of the European Union. Stuff happened today. I'll be talking about all of this in just a moment. A lot of stuff that occurred today with today's trading session. Even though we have big rallies on the fake news, tariffs are going to be postponed. We still ended up just slightly lower on that European news that the EU announced today. More about that in just a moment. A couple things quickly. The S&P is now down 21.33%, and my measurement may not be completely perfect, but right around 20, just over 21%. Just eyeballed it, and it may not be exact, but right around 21% on the S&P 500. Again, just above the 61.8 Fibonacci from the 2023 low on the log scaling, just below it on the linear scaling. Signals remain bearish. Again, in order to turn this around, we got to see signals all begin to turn back to bullish. We've dropped below the support zone over here from the low and the August low, the support zone. But right now, at the moment, we're getting this bottoming tail here in the daily time frame and on that weekly chart. S&P is going to turn it around. We've got to see bars turn back to green. We've got to see the cloud turn back to green. The 50 is approaching the 200. We just got the death cross on Bitcoin. And by the way, the death crosses often can mark bottoms. Sometimes you get a bottom just before the death cross or right after the death cross. Other times, usher in a bearish phase or a bear market. 22, when we got the death cross, we had rallied back up to the death cross and overthrew those moving averages, but then still went lower. We'll be watching. You got these gaps now going on here. We're going to be watching these gaps to see if we start seeing a spectacular rally higher on hope. The signals still remain bearish. Forming these divergences on some indicators. Other indicators like the MACD are moving to a new low. You still have a potential divergence right here with momentum. Others, you're moving to a new low with it. Line and the bars, they all tried to turn bullish. We had this signal. It only gave us a counter trend. And then now we're seeing everything bearish. It has to change to turn it around. We got to see signals turn back to bullish, momentum turn back to bullish. Line flipped back to red right here and is still bearish. Same thing here for the S&P 500. Right when we peaked, right after that, signals turned bearish. They've been bearish ever since. We tried to flip momentum right here, couldn't do it. Signals remain bearish. Everything is red. The bars, the background, all the indicators remain bearish. We rallied up to the 200 and we got rejection. If the market's going to turn around, I got to see my signals turn back to bullish. Some signals try to turn back to bullish, but then quickly turned back to bearish. When we peaked up here, we saw the tightening of the Bollinger Bands, and that led to this first leg down. Sell signals were in place, and they remained bearish. I turned back to bullish here, but flipped right after we got rejection at the 200-period moving average. In order to turn it around, we got to get back above the lower Bollinger Band to get a rebound back up. This flips signals back to green. And again, signals remain bearish. We tried to turn and flip momentum with our rally to the 200-period moving average. We got another bearish reversal of conditions. I told you right here, we got that doji, and it told us something big was about to happen. We had rejection off of the 200-period. We get a continuation of this. Now, the MACD is moving to a new low. Other things like the oscillator here still have a divergence in place, even better divergence with the S&P futures on some indicators as we're becoming oversold on our stochastics. And I'll be watching what happens. We're at horizontal support from the January 2022 peak. Important Fibonacci retracement levels, a 50% retracement, as I've said, for the 2022 low and the 61.8 Fibonacci from the 2023 low. Don't be surprised if we get a massive wide range bar. I mean, just a totally huge bullish bar, reversing some of this, coming back and filling some of these gaps, or it does it over time here. If we get a hope rally, as I've been talking about, a rally of hope, negotiations. The media is telling us there's no way this is going to happen, and yet it's already starting to happen. They're telling us there's no way the tariffs are going to work this time, just like they always do, and yet it's working. I may not like tariffs, but I can admit it does look like that tactic is starting to work. Don't be surprised if we start seeing a rebound of hope. NASDAQ 100 forming a divergence on the awesome oscillator and getting really a Class B divergence here where, again, you're getting almost two equal lows and you're going lower with price as stochastics oversold. So, again, NASDAQ had rallied up to that 200 period moving average. We got a bullish reversal of conditions, but we got rejection at the 200, and then we dropped right back below the moving averages, and we got the bearish reversal of conditions, and we've seen this drop now. Now, on the 60-minute chart, we got a bottoming tail today. We opened, we dropped, and then we rebounded back up, and we got this rally. We went positive. I mean, this crazy swing within 30 minutes. I think it's the largest swing in history, going from 5% lower, going into positive territory, going back up, filling the gap lower, but then turning down, and again ending 0.23% lower for the end of the session. This is the 60-minute chart. The 50 remains below the 200. In order to bottom, we got to rally back up, go back and fill these gaps. You got the gaps here. And you've got to be able to get back above that 200 period moving average. So we've got these gaps over the last few days. One possibility is that we have a 5-leg push here, a larger ABC move, and it could be 1, 2, 3, we get 4, and we get one more push down for 5. Certainly possible. If this rally fails, could be though that we get a reversal and a larger move down, an Elliott wave speculation, but a larger move down like that. And that we have already completing a bottom with a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. So a couple of different ways to look at it. Again, the move still looks corrective when you look at the bigger picture from the highs. It still looks like a larger 3-leg push lower, larger corrective move. We moved to new extremes on the RSI here in the 60-minute time frame. So again, there's still the possibility of a divergence developing there. You don't have to, but it very well could. MACD is trying to turn back up here, touching the signal line. It still may end up forming a divergence on the MACD before all is said and done, but it just might just mark an extreme. Have to form a divergence, but you could. 60-minute chart of the S&P. NASDAQ 60-minute chart still has a nice looking divergence here on the RSI. MACD turning back up here, going positive at the end of the session there. Again, same thing here. Possible reversal bar here, hollow red candlestick. We got the hammer on the S&P. We got a hollow red candlestick on the 60-minute chart for NASDAQ. S&P closed down 0.23%, just under 0.25%. NASDAQ closed up in the positive territory, 0.19% higher, up just under 33 points. So we'll be watching these candlesticks here in the 60-minute time frame. But if we end up seeing China cancel their retaliatory tariffs, we have tomorrow to do it. The Trump administration said on the 9th, the 50% additional tariffs will go into place, and negotiations will be cut off. So we'll be watching to see, does China cave? And if they do, we could see a big rally. Well, the MACD is going lower. We did get a hollow red candlestick on the S&P 500 at those Fibonacci support levels, something we're paying attention to and watching these gaps here as the 50 moves towards the 200 period moving average. RSI is also moving to a new low with the MACD. Some indicators are forming divergences, others are moving to new lows. Hollow red candlestick here on the daily chart. MACD moving to a new low here on the NASDAQ. Again, we're becoming very, very oversold. You still have a divergence, so on these histograms, even though you don't have it on the MACD, the RSI moving to a new low as well. So we'll be watching that. And you don't have to form a divergence, but you could. Do we get a big attempted rebound to come back and try to fill some of these gaps? Do we get a rally of hope? We see China cancel the retaliatory tariffs. We still have very, very bearish sentiment, and we are continuing to see extreme fear with the fear greed index. We had a reading of 4 on Friday. We still have a reading of 4. We're at extreme fear. This is where bottoms develop. The Dow was down by 0.91%. Just under 1%, dropping 349 points. The S&P, which was down, had dropped 5%. We saw the markets open and then go lower. Recovered, actually went positive on the fake report that the news came out that the administration was going to pause the tariffs for 90 days. Again, they're going to begin here April 9th. Previously, we've already had other tariffs begin The reciprocal tariffs going to begin this week. China's retaliatory tariffs on the 10th, and more about that. This is likely going to give the stock market a massive rally. What just happened today? But after dropping 5%, the S&P only ended down 0.23%, down 11.83 points, just under 12 points. A candle of indecisions. NASDAQ closed flat, NASDAQ Composite, and actually with a slight gain. Russell was down about 1%. And the VIX, after surging up, black candlestick and a black candlestick reversal bar, and the VIX only up by 3.31% after being much higher for the session. Remember, we had closed just above the 45 area. Right now we're just in 46 level, just under 47. Again, we have media telling us there's no way this is going to work. What they always do. Okay? No hope. We're just going to see this happen and going to have a complete collapse of the economy. The narrative that they're pushing right now. Now look, we're going into recession. As I talked about over the weekend, and if you didn't see the video, I said there's compelling evidence that we're not done. That this is the preview of coming attractions. And credit markets starting to have stress in the credit markets, that is suggesting that this is the issue that gives us volatility before the next rally in an overall topping process. Secondly, we have the inverted yield curve again, which is suggesting that we're not done. Still going to go make new highs. Both of those things are still suggesting this move is corrective. It looks corrective at this point. It still does. What could be our, again, intermediate wave 4. It's telling us, oh, there's no way this is going to work. No hope, forget it, it's over. And yet, what they always say, we have things starting to work. Let me just say, I'm no fan of tariffs. And again, we got the Treasury Secretary out there telling us that, now we've got more than 50 countries engaging with the Trump administration to either move towards negotiations or starting to negotiate, which we're already seeing the progress. Countries, Israel has removed all tariffs. Vietnam is exploring zero tariffs. Argentina, Zimbabwe, the same thing. Now Taiwan, zero tariffs. So we're seeing these countries begin to remove their tariffs. And we're being told, oh, it's not going to work, it's not going to work. Yet, it's working. I'm saying this as somebody that does not like tariffs. Objective enough that I can say, hey, it's working. India now is within days of cutting a deal with the Trump administration. Now we get the sell-off on the S&P of 5%, and what happens? The EU comes out and says, oh, we're ready to negotiate. Gee, who told you that was going to happen? Talking about retaliatory tariffs, but guess what? From what I've read, and don't quote me on this because, again, the articles that I've read were a little bit more vague, but it looks like the tariffs are supposed to start in May. So they're pushing it forward, the retaliatory tariffs. At least that's what it looks like. Again, the reason why I say that is because it's unclear. You got Forbes and others saying May 16th, but is that everything that they're talking about or just certain ones? And it's not being clear enough. But right now, it looks like they've got a May 16th date for retaliatory tariffs. And again, that gives time for negotiations here in April on it. I mean, that's over a month away. It's kind of vague. It says some. Then they give the other with the rest on December 1st, but a couple articles I read on it doesn't make it clear if that's everything. So it looks like it is, but again, just want to make that clear. So it looks like the EU is weighing retaliatory tariffs of 25%, pushing them into the future to hopefully cut a deal and bring time for negotiations. Because if they bring them on right now, Trump's going to do what he just did to China. He's going to do what he just did to Canada. Going to slap them back on with more tariffs. Right now he's making an example of China, which is likely about to cave. Let me talk about that. I wanted to tell you, again, the EU, and we had the European Commission president say they're ready to negotiate. The market is going to have a rally of hope and have a massive, massive rebound. Now, Trump slapped on his tariffs. They're going to start on April 9th this week in 2 days. Reciprocal tariffs. China responds. Trump and the Treasury Secretary told other countries, don't retaliate or it's going to get worse. And I told you at the time when Trump put the tariffs at half, that was probably a smart negotiating tool because all they got to do is just raise them up, which they're now going to do with China. If they start doing it with a couple of countries or just China, make an example of China, other countries are not going to do it. Again, to get them to the negotiating table. Get this over with. And I'm telling you, these tariffs are going to go away. And you're going to see trade deals reached. The media is telling us, no possible way, no hope, it's over. And again, same thing they always say, and you're going to get this resolved. You're probably going to see much of the tariffs end up going away, just like it did in 2018 when the media told us it was over then. Following Trump off a cliff. We're going to have a recession, a preview of coming attractions. See a recovery. Bunch of fake news today driving the market about the Fed and about the Trump administration postponing the reciprocal tariffs for 90 days. Market having wild swings on fake news. Absolutely incredible. Let me just say this: China to impose that we saw Trump, put the tariffs on. It's roughly bringing the total tariffs against China to 54%. China has tariffs, but they also have other things that they do. They have really predatory trade practices. They really do. They manipulate their currency. They cheat. They steal intellectual property. Labor workers over there have no rights. And again, people over there working for horrible wages. And again, a lot of this fixing the trade balance and making a good trade agreement could fix all of that and help human rights for the people of China. Now, let me just say this. China cannot win a trade war with the United States, and the Trump administration knows this. Trump slaps on the tariffs, all right? Start on the 9th of this week here, April 9th. China retaliates. Now Trump, what China did is, we're not going to take the bullying, escalate the trade war, and again, the markets had a negative reaction to that. Now Trump is responding back. And I told you this was going to, over the weekend, I told you we're going to see some kind of response out of the Trump administration. We got it to. Now, I was reading the news stories. There's a couple of news stories about this, actually quite a bit of them, but I read a couple of them. And I wanted to read everything he wrote, Trump responding to China. So I went over and looked at what he posted on social media. Made a copy of it here, and I'm going to just talk about it briefly. He talks about that China, did the retaliatory tariffs to 30%. He talks about China's currency manipulation and trade practices, but he goes on to say that despite my warning that any country that retaliates against the U.S. by using additional tariffs above and beyond already existing long-term tariff abuse of our nation will be immediately met with new and substantially higher tariffs above those initially set. And this is what I was talking about, why they did the half amount. Trump announced the tariffs last week. Therefore, if China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, so April 8th, by tomorrow, the United States will impose additional tariffs on China of 50%. Now, again, that would take it from the average of 54% up to 104% effective on April 9th, which is when the reciprocal tariffs are going to kick in tomorrow, on the 9th there. China has until tomorrow to reverse it. They're going to get stuck with 50% more. Additionally, all talks with China concerning their requested meetings with us will be terminated. Negotiations with other countries, which have also requested meetings, will begin taking place immediately. So he's doing two things, and still in the art of the deal here. He's a businessman. He's a negotiator. Okay, he slapped on tariffs. China's saying, okay, we're going to call you on it, and we're going to do retaliatory tariffs. And Trump's saying, okay, then I'm going to pretty much double the tariffs because, again, with adding up everything, it's about a 54% tariff based on news reports. He's saying he's going to increase it by 50%, and he's going to cut off negotiations, and you're going to be stuck with it. Doing this to make an example of China's retaliatory tariffs, sending a warning to other countries, don't do this. And now he's calling their bluff. This is the same exact thing that we saw happen with Canada. Trump put on the 25% tariff on steel and aluminum. Canada retaliates with a charge on electricity. And Trump says, okay, we're going to double your tariffs. And immediately, Canada caved. We see China immediately cave. You know, all the stories I saw over the weekend, media, China's not going to put up with this bullying. They're crickets about how bad China's trade policies are and tariffs are in all these other countries. The Trump administration is basically sending China a message now. Either you're going to stop playing games and come to the negotiating table, or you get to go into depression. Your choice. China cannot win a trade war with the United States. They need the United States to buy their stuff. I think you're probably going to see China cave. They have until tomorrow to do it. I think they're going to do exactly what Canada did. And again, this is what the media keeps telling us. Slaps on tariffs. He wants countries to do something. He wants, at the border, or he wants better trade deals. It tells us, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And then see the leaders cave, make concessions, negotiate deals. We're still in the early stages of all this, but seeing this happen over and over again. My guess is we're going to see China cave in the market. If China rescinds the 34% retaliatory tariffs, the stock market's going to soar back up in all likelihood. The media is telling us, oh no, Trump's slapping on more tariffs. Now they're going to slap on more tariffs. And media says that every time, but yet I keep saying. Now again, I'm not a fan of the tariffs. I don't like all this, but I'm just telling you, how do we know it's not going to work? So far, we're seeing a lot of countries now come to the negotiating table. Over 50 countries calling up the White House, trying to hammer out a deal. The countries I've already mentioned talking about going to zero tariffs. Now, what we had today with Europe, a good sign. That's why the market made a comeback. But just wanted to leave this with China. You're going to get a rally of hope. And if China ends up caving on this issue, big rally. Even if they don't, other countries are coming to the negotiating table. It is working. Trump is giving China a wake-up call, potentially raising the tariffs on China to 104%. You got now Europe talking about saying they're open to negotiations, but even further, as I've said, is Europe, the European Union, ready now to come to the negotiating table? Remember, we had the sessions list that we learned about previously, but European Commission president said what other countries are already saying, like what we've talked about with Israel, Vietnam, Taiwan, Zimbabwe, Argentina, these countries talking about zero for zero tariffs. That's what Trump wants. Not only did she say that they were open to negotiations now, offering zero for zero tariffs. This is what the United States wants. What the media told us would not happen. I told you it's going to happen. We're going to see. We're seeing the sell-off today, and again, S&P closed slightly lower. NASDAQ Composite closed positive. If China ditches the 34% tariffs, you're going to see a bigger rally even tomorrow. They've got to do it tomorrow. So I don't know if that's going to be during market hours or not. But again, we're likely going to see some kind of recovery. I think that they're probably going to cave. And even if they don't, you're going to see all these other countries going to the negotiating table, a lot of these tariffs going away, deals being reached, exactly the opposite of what the media has been telling us is going to happen with this. An overreaction to all of this. Huge news here. They offered a zero for zero tariffs. Europe's always looking for a good deal. Cracks me up. All these people, leaders, condemning Trump's tariffs. Oh, they're horrible. Their tariffs are worse than Trump's. Like anybody's tariffs. Just telling you, look, the media's telling us there's no hope. We're going to see a massive rally. Europe's, coming to the negotiating table. Other countries are cutting deals with Trump left and right. To find some of these stories, the media doesn't want to report them. Busy, trying to tear their pants off everybody. Just hoping we go into recession. Now we are going to go into recession. Recession indicators flashed long before Trump ever won the election, long before the tariffs. I think we buy more time. The credit markets and the yield curve are suggesting that. We had the rally on the European Union news, and then we also had this other massive rally. I mean, we went from negative to positive in 30 minutes, and it was one of the, I think it is, the biggest 30-minute swing in history. But there was a report that the Trump administration was talking about a 90-day pause. The Trump administration later came out and said it was fake news. Sorry, so much to cover today. Then we had more fake news today, moving markets. There was that we had this emergency meeting out of the Fed for emergency rate cuts, and that wasn't true. This is a meeting that was already scheduled back on April 3rd, a closed board meeting. So that was later dismissed, and again, with the tensions heating up between the United States and China, their stock market tanked by more than 10% at the lows. It ended up closing about 7.5% lower. The worst drop for the Chinese market, one-day drop since 2008. So if China doesn't back down and reverse the retaliatory tariffs, well, the Shanghai Composite is going to fall into the abyss. Gives us they're going to back down, that they're going to cave. Cooler heads are going to prevail. Testing the Trump administration did exactly what they said they were going to do. They're slapping on more tariffs for China's retaliation. If cooler heads prevail and they cave, back down, we'll likely see the market have a massive, massive rally. The rally was largely surrounding the comments from the EU, willing to negotiate and talking about 0 for 0 tariffs. A big rally with the European Union today. Could we see, and the sell-off again with the tensions, but we didn't close there. We see China give us a rebound. I don't think the Trump administration is going to walk back the 50% increase. I think China's probably going to end up caving. If they don't, other countries are striking deals with the Trump administration. They're going to be made the example. Again, I think it's working. It looks like it's working to me. I think we'll probably see a massive rebound back up.